much money, and I don't have much time, and I don't have many friends I could call mine. And I've been deceived, yeah, but haven't we all? I've seen the sun rise, and I've seen the sun fall. Well, I don't know why, and I don't know where, and I don't even know how, and I no longer care. But I've seen your face, and I've heard your call. Yes, I've seen the sun rise, and I've seen the sun fall.
Hello and welcome to SDAQ&A. My very special guest today is Andrea McMahon. How are you, Andrea?
I'm well. You, Peter?
I am terrific. A fellow muso. I wish I had your hair though to rock it out. Hey, so good to have you here today. I've put here Andrea McMahon, Seventh-day Adventist Questions Her Faith. And I've seen over maybe the last 4 or 5 months your involvement with SDAQ&A. I'm not sure if you're in some of the other groups, but I've really enjoyed your questions and comments that you've been making. And so I invited you on the show to kind of talk about this journey. It came across, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, but it came across a few times that you were kind of questioning things, and you were having your eyes open to some things you hadn't sort of pondered before.
Definitely.
Perhaps tell us a little bit about, you were born into the Adventist Church generationally. Adventists love talking about how many generations they've been in Adventist. Tell us a little bit about, Andrea, where you came from, your involvement in the church, and then I want to get stuck into some of these key things that have been kind of sparking your brain lately.
Okay. I was born in Perth. My mum's in some ways a third gen, but it was her mother who converted her mother. So,
in a roundabout way,
in a roundabout way, third gen that way, and definite third gen on the other side, on Dad's side.
Yeah. Because the McMahon name is a big name within Adventism. Lots of lawyers, doctors, maybe kind of movers and shakers really have had a big influence on the church over the years. Were you a part of that part of the family, or?
Dad's their cousin. So Dad was the cousin. I don't know if you knew Lloyd McMahon.
Yep.
Don McMahon.
Are you related to Dave McMahon?
Don't know.
No, he's one of those, but possibly one of the cousins, because it's quite a big family, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was born in Western Australia, and Dad and Mum split up when I was really young.
Oh, I didn't know
So,
that. Wow.
yeah, I was 8 when they got a divorce. And Dad
Boy, that
moved
would have been
over
tough.
to Sorry?
That would have been tough as an 8-year-old. Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
And Dad moved over to America. So
Wow.
I only really have gotten to know some of the McMahons in my adulthood.
Wow.
So I really don't know much about that side of the family.
Yeah.
As I say, the only I've met a couple of the cousins, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been weird. I know people thinking, this McMahon questioning, but to be perfectly honest, when I was younger, because and I could be wrong here, but I felt like before Mum and Dad split, I was treated completely differently to when Mum and Dad split.
In your local church, you mean?
In the whole of West Australia church side of things.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the difference?
I don't know. It's just it was more of a feeling than anything, because let's face it, I was only 8.
Yeah, that's right. But distinct enough for you to remember, though, that there was something that shifted.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There was definitely a shift. Um,
You felt
yeah,
more alienated or a little bit more on the outside than you had been before?
very much on the outside. Very much on the
Right,
outside. Mum and Dad split was not pretty.
right.
It wasn't pretty, and it involved the church.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have, or do you have? Oh, so it's just you. So that had an even bigger impact. Wow.
Yeah. So it
So
was
that
it
was very.
was
I mean, my
very
daughter's my 9-year-old just turned 10, so I've got 10 and 11-year-old, and I can't imagine how upsetting that would be for them if my wife and I had a split. It would just be devastating for them and all of us. Have you managed to kind of reconcile some of those feelings, or have they kind of dogged you your whole life?
um bit of both, I suppose.
Mm.
Um, I remember the day I lost all my confidence.
Yeah, tell me about that.
It was only a silly little thing that sparked it, but there was a time when I had confidence, and then all of a sudden the teacher just said one little word to me, and that was it. I was gone, and my confidence was gone from that point for a
Wow.
long time.
How old were you when that happened?
I was in grade 1, I think, for the second time round.
Wow.
They put me back a year.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that
So
incredible, the power of words from teachers, authority figures, pastors, it
I
carries
don't.
so much weight. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame the teacher,
No?
and I don't blame it. I believe that just all of a sudden the whole culmination of everything,
Mm.
and that's that it was the culmination of everything. Dad and Mum splitting up, Mum moving to the country. She was a nurse, so she got a nurse's post out in Darren, in the middle of nowhere, really.
Mm.
And it's really difficult, because there's probably things that I'd like to tell you, but it's probably not things that I can go into. Dad's in at he doesn't want to be there. He wants to be back in America, but Dad's in at Sherwin Lodge, so the Adventist facility over here in Perth. And Mum still plays the organ every single week at Armidale Church. So
Wow.
they're all still full on into it. But I tell you what, knowing more now about the Adventist Church and what it actually really is and what it actually really believes, it's so much easier to forgive my parents because they were raised in a cult. So I have a much bigger, So coming out of Adventism is almost like coming to myself and finding out, what really is. And I'm liking that.
And therefore isn't it ironic that you come out and you feel less of a victim and less blaming towards those who may have impacted you, because you can suddenly see, oh, okay, I'm looking from the outside and can see what a tangled web it is.
Yeah. Oh, I know more about Adventism now in the, I don't know how many months it is, let's say 5 months that I've been questioning, than I've ever known. Miles is, part of that, and all the other people on YouTube. YouTube has saved my life, really.
It's exploded in the last little while, and where back in the day the church could suppress information quite effectively, you just can't take it down. Like, Answering Adventism, you just mentioned, Miles, and Test the Prophet.
Watch every single
Academy,
video.
Apologia, and so many more. You just can't stop it anymore. It's really, it feels like it's been brewing for a long time, but it's really hit in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of your back catalogue.
There's a lot.
And honestly, like Miles's videos, there's 3 hours worth sometimes.
I know.
I have gone over them 3 times.
I know. Isn't it interesting? It's like, I would even say that, like, I'm having penny dropping moments daily, even now, even after 300 plus interviews. Like when I did the recent setting the record straight, which is part of a little mini series about that inaccurate sort of assessment of Glacier View and Des Ford. As I was doing that, I suddenly thought, hang on a second. I'm starting to finally grasp, in maybe the last 5 or 6 programs I've done, how significantly serious this problem is, and how this unique kind of Adventism with probation closing, standing without an intercessor, vindicating God, proving Satan's claim wrong, is essential to Adventism, but it seems like most people don't wake up to that. And I feel like I'm only waking up to it, even though I had it taught to me my whole life. Because we have this kind of gospel Adventism within Adventism that kind of waters it down and soothes the soul and points you in the right direction. But there's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on there. As you've been working through all of this information, have you noticed initially, did you start to kind of defend the church as well? My interview yesterday had so much pushback, or the day before, I should say. My one about Ted Wilson is a real Adventist.
Oh, wow.
I've had so much pushback from the progressives, that's my Adventism as well. And sure, it is. And you can make it whatever you want, and you can be part of a church that doesn't talk about that kind of thing. But you can't ignore that the general thrust of Adventism in writing, with the source material, with Ellen White as a prophet, God telling her these things, you can't deny that it has a special mission. And so are you going to be part of that special mission, or deny that it has a special mission but find a nice warm place within it? So at those moments, when you were kind of still feeling like, well, that's not really my Adventism, did you still try to justify being an Adventist, or has it been a bit of a fast roller coaster for you?
Oh, goodness. It's really weird. This particular push, because really I've had many pushes trying to get out of the Adventist church. I've gone to Pentecostal churches, but I could never actually completely get involved because there's always this thing in the back of my head that's stopping me, and it's the Adventist worldview. It's that whole, and it just wouldn't go away. And I was starting to, on YouTube, I was watching a lot of Scientology, getting out of Scientology, and then the getting out of Mormonism and all of those sorts of videos. And I started seeing similarities with Adventism.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's what sent me on this particular journey this time. And then I started studying Adventism and what it actually was. And then I was searching on YouTube for people like you and found you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did.
I tried years ago, but I couldn't find anything years ago. But you guys were there.
Yeah.
Thankfully. And that's and then all of a sudden the real thing that flicked me out was the investigative judgment.
Yeah, it's the big one.
It is. And then I found out about the scapegoat. And I spoke to a couple of people about the scapegoat. And the instant thing that they come up with, oh, yes, no, he's, I've said to people, look, I don't want Satan anywhere near my salvation. And they say, oh no, he's just getting the consequences. No, Jesus took the consequences.
I know. Isn't that
for me?
Isn't that interesting that the scapegoat one, along with a few other little ones surrounding that, with even the misrepresentation of Jesus as being one of the priests, and in pictures they even have him wearing the ceremonial dress, which is so not what he was. But just little things like that are so unbiblical. But when you say to people, what about that? They'll go, well, that's not my Adventism. And I think, surely, do people, like, is it okay? In my interview with Bill Johnson, I'm not sure if you've seen it, season 2, episode 1. If you haven't seen it, it kind of encapsulates everything that SDAQ&A is about in many ways. He and I disagreeing. But when I said to him, does it matter? Can you be an Adventist and not believe anything happened in 1844? And he goes, yeah. And okay, you can be, but surely that also rocks your world a little bit. Surely you go, okay, well, I can be a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness, and still have a nice view of Jesus. Yeah, but right behind you is this massive banner flashing inconsistent, unbiblical stuff. It's okay, you just ignore that. That's just my religion. But we'll just ignore that because I love Jesus. Hey, look, quick question. I'm just bringing it up on the screen because Canadian Anglican has written, I don't know if you're still watching, it came up a minute or two ago. Is this about people that leave Adventism? Sometimes. I'm an Adventist, and the show is called SDAQ&A, a former Adventist looking in from the outside. So we talk to all kind of Adventists, and Canadian Anglican, you're welcome to watch and join in and comment and learn all about Adventism. So I thought I'd just bring that in because that's obviously someone stumbling across us on YouTube there. Yeah. So what do you make? I'm just, I guess, fresh off the the heels of yesterday's program.
Yes.
Where I presented Ted Wilson's Adventism in 10 minutes. And so many people were saying that's not my Adventism. I'm just interested in teasing out from your experience. What are people? I can't even quite fathom it yet. What are people? Even though I did it, so it's like this blind spot. What is going through people's minds when they put their name? I'm a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yeah.
To the religion, but there's so many things they really disagree with, and then they claim, oh well, all denominations have left and right and fundamental and liberal, and this is just a normal thing. I don't see the Adventist. Sure, be an Adventist, put your name to it, but what is going on with that? Like, it's like working for McDonald's and serving people and saying, well, I don't agree with anything really that McDonald's does, their food, their mission statement or anything, but I can find some good food here, and I enjoy conversations with my friends in one of the food booths. What is going on with that?
I didn't think about it. I didn't have time to think about it.
Right.
When I've had 5 kids. First marriage was not an Adventist. And so he was upset with me because all of a sudden I went back to church. And I didn't think about it. Just recently, just hearing all the things, the scapegoat thing.
Yeah.
Did I ever really hear that? Yes. Did I think about it? No.
Interesting.
And the same with a lot of the other Ellen White sort of Adventist style stuff. But you've got to understand, from my perspective, Mum found a book, and I have no idea what it was. Dad was in with the Brimsmeads and he was in all sorts of stuff. But anyway, she was complaining to me, and this is when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, but I remember it. She said, this book's against Ellen White. So,
wow.
So, we've had fights in the family right from day dot about all of this stuff.
Yeah. So it's like, on the one hand, we're very informed, but on the other hand, we overlook stuff,
Look, honestly, I learned about cognitive dissonance recently, and I thought it was everyone else. And then I found out that I had it in a major way when it came to the Adventist church. And my only way to fix that for me has been to delve into the Ellen White stuff and learn exactly what the Adventist worldview is so that I can get it out of my head, because it's there. It's and the only way, and I'll never get rid of it, as you say. I just keep sparking new things all the time.
Yeah.
And but at least now I'm at a manageable spot, so I don't have to be watching Miles' videos 3 times. I watch his videos still, but I don't have to. I don't have to go so stupid.
You're starting to wake up and go, okay, right.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see that now more clearly. But there is a time where you kind of have to really do that. A lot of the gospel Adventists and those who say, hey, that's not my Adventism, a lot of them just say, hey, let's just focus on Jesus. And almost their tone of voice changes. Let's just focus on Jesus. And I'm going, wait, yeah, but you can do that and explore truth at the same time. Jesus also cleared the temple.
The problem is that I really do believe that all the Adventisms that we sort of forget about and, don't look at, I believe they're scales on the gospel. So I don't believe Adventists, even the gospel ones, in some cases can even get to the gospel and see what the gospel actually is.
Yeah, I agree.
I was driving down the road the other day, and all of a sudden I had this peace and this joy, and because all of a sudden I knew what the gospel was. But I've heard the gospel before. I've been to different churches, but I could not hear it because of the scales of Adventism that were covering it. And until I learnt what Ellen White said, until I learnt what the church actually was, I couldn't get rid of that to get to the gospel. And so, I've been what I've thought was a Christian all my life. And I think really I've probably been a Christian for 5 months.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting and sad as well? But it shows the power of this cognitive dissonance. Where even when people say, "Hey, well, I'm just focusing on Jesus," well, what does that mean if you're putting your name to a brand that isn't actually biblical? Like, sure, you can find your way to Jesus in the quagmire and of Adventism and in the deep dark forest as you you cut your way through all the vines. Sure, you can find Jesus, you can find the gospel, but would you then recommend others to find the gospel via that route? Wouldn't you say, hey, look, instead of turning right into Adventism, go left and just follow the gospel path? It's much easier because it's not rocket science. It's just a
Would
simple journey.
anyone go to Adventism if they truly found the gospel? I suppose, yeah. I was in a Bible study the other night. I've been going to a Baptist church. And they were in there as, what's my response to, the gospel? What's my response to God in that? And, I could almost see them wanting to go down the works path. And I'm there, oh my goodness, don't do that, please.
Yeah, that's right. Warning. Computer says
Our
no.
only response is worship. Our
Yeah.
only response is worship.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at the minute anyway.
Yeah. I'm just going to bring up a couple of comments. You don't mind me doing that as
Please do.
Yeah, just as we go, keeping it in real time. Deanna says, how can one say they're Adventists without a clear definition of it? There are so many different styles of Adventism. Which one do you represent to others? You know what? Thank you, Deanna. One thing that people say I'm criticizing Ted Wilson. I actually admire how clearly he's saying, this is what I believe as a church, as the president, based on all the source material, our belief in Ellen G. White, our special, unique message with the sanctuary and the investigative judgment doctrine. I admire that he's being really clear. So I'm actually not criticizing him. I'm trying to tease apart and challenge people, because people did not like the day before when I said that he is real Adventism. Oh, hang on a second. I'm real Adventism too. Yeah. Okay. Well, what is that then? And then exactly like Deanna said, people say, well, what is that clear definition? And when I say to the gospel Adventists, come on the show, I genuinely want to know, what is this Adventism you speak of that is different to Ted's? They won't come on the show. I've asked about 10 people in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so the reality is, if you want to really find out these benefits of Adventism that aren't the same as Ted's, you have to talk about it and share what that is. You can't just quietly experience it.
Yeah, it's difficult. I've never been one to watch the Teds and I've sort of kept that at bay. But I've watched more Adventist stuff in the last 5 months than ever. I watch the sermons that Mum watches, and then we have a conversation about it afterwards.
Interesting. Because she's still a real dyed-in-the-wool Adventist.
Oh gosh, I think she's got the cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
She really believes in Ellen White. She believes she got the gospel from Ellen White. And and the other day though, she did get on the phone. Oh, well, I suppose I am well read. So she, read Venden as well, and she got into all sorts of different bits and pieces. But then when I talked to her about Des Ford, she because I grew up when all that was going on, I remember the people that were asked to leave the church. I remember all sorts of stuff, and but she has this instant dread when she hears his name, because there was stuff going on back in the day. So yes, but she really wants to find the gospel, and I think that she has.
Yeah.
But then she reads the lesson and she gets on the phone with me again, and and I said, "Well, there's no gospel there, Mum."
And what does she say to that?
Oh no, she sees it. She sees it. The only
Oh.
problem is the cognitive dissonance comes back in again. So yeah, but she's doing well. We'll see how she goes. We'll see how she goes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting journey, and a lot of people will come. You can pin them down on other things, and they might start thinking. But ultimately, the reason for Adventism's being, whether people listen to Ted Wilson, whether they've read much Ellen White, whether they've studied much or not, that's what it is. If someone works for McDonald's and thinks it's all about health food and really comfortable eat-in dining that is going to really sustain you, no matter how much you think that's true and you've been told that, it's just not true. The core of Adventism is to raise up a people to stand at the end of time, to vindicate God, to prove Satan wrong, to stand without an intercessor. And people just go, oh, well, I just don't believe that. Okay, don't believe it, but that's what Adventism is. So that, if you don't want to put your name to that and still be in the church, okay, but at least realize and acknowledge that that is what Adventism is.
Yeah, well, that's the Adventism I was raised on, but it's given in such piecemeal, tiny little bits, fragment here and a fragment there, and it's not said like you said it then.
I know. Yeah, it's not.
And that's, now that I know that, now that I've been there, I can talk to Mum, and I can, I can, she can read me a little bit out of the lesson, and I can see which part of that bit.
Yes, because it's often so flowery, isn't it? So, and a lot of, like, I read a lot of what I'm saying just then came from me reading over and over again in recent months, chapter 28, 29, 39, and 40, I think, of The Great Controversy.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of just read it and read it, listen to things, but she has so much flowery stuff in there as well, and so beautifully written, and she sees these things, and I was shown this, and there's just you get lost in the milieu of whether it's her writing or not, whoever's kind of phrasing her general ideas. You get kind of caught up in the real nice there's this kind of sweet perfume wafting around a lot of the writings. And then you think, but hang on a second, scapegoat, the Satan, what? And so you kind of overlook some of the glaring falsehoods because it's so nicely written, and Adventist apologists are so nice at presenting the stuff and the way they talk. It's so often scripted in a way that's just so reassuring and calming. And what's that guy, Finlay? Been watching some of his stuff recently. They just speak with beautiful tone in their voice and very reassuring, and the great authoritative speaking. And even Ted, in the video I did the other day, he opens up, we're going to look at reality. Okay, wow, he's going to share what reality is, So it's easy to sit in the pew and just be taken along with it, and there's nice music and camaraderie and great food. And yeah, but the Adventist apologists are masters at bringing you in. Having said that, the stats would show that very few people 30 plus encountering Adventism join the church. It's mainly people born into it.
Yeah. And look, honestly, I've seen one happen fairly recently, where they have come into the church, and you're treated differently when you go into the church on that sort of basis. Others like me, you should know better. And then, but at the same time, I was very honest when I came back to church this time. I said, look, I've been over with Pentecostals, I've been doing this, that, and the other, and something else. And even I was sort of treated maybe a little bit differently because, bring someone back into the fold. Yeah. So, and I don't blame them or anything. And then when I started questioning, I started talking to someone, and it was, there are people around here who don't know what Adventism is. Let's sort of go off into a corner to discuss this. Not, it's just not in the open. There's just something different. I mean, and it is almost like, give people Adventism piecemeal.
Yes. Yeah.
And get to the harder stuff later.
Yeah. Once you're already in.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the diagram, but I went nuts. I went to the conference office here. I went to the secondhand books, found a questions on doctrine. So that's going to stay in my So that's going to stay in my collection. But I found another book. I can't remember what it's called, but it's to do with how to proselytize. And it's got this diagram of a mountain, and Christ is about third one up or something, the cross, and then there's the rest of this mountain to get to, I suppose, enlightenment. So it's just piecemeal giving Adventism to people until, well, once you're there, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of stuck.
And then it's the real hook is the Sabbath.
Yeah.
I just believe in the Sabbath and what a blessing it is. But if you tease that out a bit, you go, well, so why is the Sabbath important? Well, it's given for man, and it's given. What that saying is, it's not for man.
Yeah.
You know what? I've just got a mental blank.
Yeah, I know.
You know the one. But and then you start going, but why was it so important for Adventists? Why did Ellen see it with a big halo around it? And you have to start going, because it's going to be an important test at the end of time. And if you don't keep it, you're not going to be one of the people that stands without an intercessor. It's even the Sabbath is a sales funnel for this final moment where, the whole point of the plan of salvation culminates.
Yeah.
And so even the beautiful Sabbath, and people just can't question the Sabbath. So many Adventists will disagree with everything else, but very few will say that they would do away with the Sabbath.
That's one of the things that Mum comes up with. She's, if I say no, I'm going to the Baptist church on Sunday, it still freaks her out.
Yeah,
it really freaks her out.
Mm.
And I don't blame her. I understand, because trying to, thinking about going to a shop on Sabbath, I'll go into almost panic mode. I still do it, but it's panic mode.
Yeah. Are you panicking because you're worried about your salvation, or that people might see you? Because sometimes people are more afraid of the judgment they're going to receive. Oh, look at that person. She's not keeping the Sabbath. She's breaking the Sabbath. We're more concerned about that than internally worried about our salvation. Like if you were in an outback town and no one was in for miles, would you walk into Woolies on a Sabbath and not feel anything? Or would you still feel funny?
No, I still feel funny. There's a guilt element, and I think it's probably habit, rather than, don't get me wrong, a judgment has always been a big part of it. But it's kind of funny when you walk through a shop and you've just come out of church and you see another bunch of Adventists there, and you just sort of both turn around and walk the other way.
I love it. I'm going to bring up a couple of things again here. So this is Keith. Keith, I've interviewed you and I really enjoyed it, and I want to get you back on the show. But is it Paulus. I always get that wrong, and I apologize profusely because I love your work and I love your posts. And you've just written, the gospel for me is stories and parables. In the gospels, inspire me to follow the example set by Jesus and strive for a life of love, compassion, and doing the right thing, loving my fellows unconditionally. Yeah, I love that. Wanted to bring that up. And this is Brian Patterson, who also I have chatted to on the program, and is a great musician as well. Andrew, I'm not sure if you've crossed paths with Brian Patterson before. He writes, when in Adventism you only feed on Adventist thinking, you never hear or read any other thoughts because Adventists have the truth. So I look at anywhere else, they have the Sabbath and a prophet, and there's a sense of pride and self-righteous because you belong to the remnant. Finding your way out of that jungle when you're struggling is difficult. If it wasn't for someone from the inside with theological clout like Des Ford, many would be still floundering. He was the one who started many of our journeys. Did you find Des Ford an influence, or you like me, where we kind of discovered him a bit later because we were just a little bit on the young side? I saw it all happening, but I was still more interested in surfing and playing music, and I knew there was problems going on, and I could feel the conflict as the concerned brethren would come to one of my gigs and pull out the power cord, that kind of thing. But but I wasn't really engaged theologically then, so I didn't grasp the incredible nature of what Des was actually saying.
Yeah.
But have you stumbled across the Des Ford kind of stuff and found that it helped you?
Recently, not in the past, but yes,
Interesting.
recently, because again, I was too young when all that stuff was going on. I was probably up to my early teens, so yeah, it was all going on.
Yeah.
Sort of, you just sort of. I just remember that there was a Sabbath school class that wasn't using the lesson, and that caused issues. So yeah, for me, it's all been the recent stuff, going back and learning the history, finding out what actually happened to Des and all the other people around that time, watching those amazing interviews. I can't remember the names of any of it. I
There were
haven't got
over
it all
86
sorted.
interviews in season 2.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of the ones that Des did, in the 70s. Was it in the 70s, in the 80s, early 80s?
Yep.
I've gone through
the Ankerberg ones.
the
were
Ankerberg,
amazing.
yeah, and so that it's all been recent, really.
Yeah.
Because as I say, I've always tried to get away from the
Yeah.
Adventist Church, but there's that. I don't know, but it's put there, and this is, I think, what sort of makes Adventism a cult. I know it's a lesser cult, and it's probably high demand religion is a better way of saying it, but there's
I
something
like that.
in me that's attached.
Yeah.
And the only way for me to get out of it is to learn what that was.
Yes. Yeah.
So going into massive study on exactly what Ellen White actually meant and putting it all into, what you and all the other YouTubers are doing with it is the only way that I've been able to get out of it. I went to the conference office. I bought all the testimonies. I've got, the big 5. They've got sticky notes all over them, and because I had to prove to myself that is exactly what the Adventist Church believes.
Yeah.
To know, okay, no, it's not for me. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. And sometimes not even to prove it as being wrong, but just to realize in almost a catharsis, in a cathartic way, this is what happened to me. This was the indoctrination, and to kind of de-brainwash yourself, and I'll get pushback for saying that, but for my journey, my experience, and thank you those who write and say, hey, we're sorry that was your experience. It wasn't ours. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. But it's been you and I have had a similar journey. It's been such an important process just to understand what I went through. What caused that coma? I need to know why I was in the coma.
Yeah, well, it's almost like, because, the Bible and what Adventists believe are two different things. And I had to separate the Adventism from the Christian. And the only way to do that is to know what the Adventism is. And so I've sort of gone on the deconstruction. Now I've got to go on the reconstruction.
Yeah.
My only belief at the minute is John 3:16.
Yeah.
That's my only little core belief that I've actually got, and then I thought, oh, maybe I have a belief on the Trinity, and then no, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Just
I'll
keep
stick-
it simple as long as you want. Yeah, I deconstructed so far that I would say I deconstructed into agnosticism, and had to kind of have some kind of, I need some kind of stable structure from my childhood, and I only went to the 4 Gospels and the teachings of Jesus. Nothing supernatural. Thanks for now. This is what I'm saying was my journey, and I've just slowly had to build from that, and I'm happy in that little playground still. I'm not trying to. No one's going to race me or force me or shame me or whatever they want to do, or belittle me or say my journey isn't valid because it's not their journey. It's my journey, and if you want to hover in John 3:16 for as long as you want, I'm not even ready to embrace, the Pauline texts at the moment.
No.
But that's my journey. I'm not saying that's what other people should do, but it's worked for me so far. Just want to bring up something Peter Mashenko said. And Peter, tell me if I said this, and I appreciate you bringing this up. There's nothing at all wrong with going to a church on Sunday or any day, but why would you want to do away with the Sabbath? I'm pretty sure that myself and Andrea did not say that we would definitely, I definitely am not saying do away with it at all. I hope that didn't come across. The Sabbath is wholly biblical in Old and New Testaments. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, for me, it's not a salvational issue. For me, keeping Sabbath a day free from the secular kind of thoughts of the world is just beneficial, but it's not a salvational issue. But Peter, if you think it's a salvational issue, I'd be really interested in your thoughts on that.
It would be interesting. I'd really love to hear from people as well. Sabbath for me, it's not about going away from the Sabbath. It's about going away from, oh goodness, just it's so hard. There's so much. I'm only, at the surface of all of this, and in getting out of there. And the only problem is that is one of the things that holds you in, is the Sabbath. And so if to get rid of, there's a word I'm trying to look for, but it's just not coming. It's guilt. It's that manufactured guilt that I want to get away from.
Right.
If you want to keep Sabbath, keep Sabbath. I'm just over the guilt.
Yeah, it's still got some hooks there. Yeah.
I just want to live my life.
Yeah.
I've lived my life to try and please everybody my entire life. And I'm just over it.
Yeah, it's time to use your own God-given brain to make your own decisions, follow your own path. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not trying to tear down Adventism or make people
No.
believe what I believe or believe Ted or not believe Ted. I'm interested in actually finding out what people believe and encouraging them to then be more defined in that belief.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to tear down your beliefs, but I want to know what you believe. And most people I talk to, particularly the progressives, aren't that clear on what they believe. It's very nebulous and pretty and dancing around with flowers and Jesus around a nice little tree. But I want to know what they believe and can they defend it. And as upset as they get with me, at least they're having to start to define what it is they believe. I'm challenging that, but I'm not trying to change it.
No.
Um,
This is all about me. This is the first time.
and good.
It's all about me.
I-
It's not about
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you want to do. And look,
Agreed.
to be perfectly honest, I was loved back to church here,
Mm,
and them loving me back to church gave me the ability to go through this stuff
yeah.
and to actually be able to get out. It's,
Isn't that
they're
interesting?
a
Yeah.
wonderful bunch,
Yeah.
down here. And I love every single one of them from both sides.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been friends with, right from both camps, the
Yeah.
gospel Adventists and the hardliners. They're just
Yeah.
wonderful people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to them for that. So
Yeah.
they think it's, is it something that we've done? Is there something? No,
You've loved me
it's,
unconditionally. You've made me feel that
yeah,
I'm loved whether I believe in you or not. Thank you.
yeah. So, no, this is purely about me and it's purely doctrinal.
I
And
reckon it is so important for people to become their own person.
yeah,
When I posted my leaving post, this is my last Sabbath as a Seventh-day Adventist, I personally had to really draw a line in the sand, or I felt like I was just going to waffle on forever until I died, still an Adventist, not believing this, blah, 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 blah. So I just had to draw a line in the sand. And I'd said
Yeah.
to some friends, and people have heard me say this a million times, I said to my best mate, I'm not going to be a Seventh-day Adventist by the time it's my next birthday. And my birthday was on the Monday and we're on a Friday and I'm going, my brain's going, you said, draw a line in the sand. So I wrote that post, April 15. It's coming up to 8 years next month. This is my last Sabbath as a Seventh-day Adventist. And just having that defining moment really helped clear things up. And on the Sunday, my dad came around after this kind of Sabbath of explosion of conversation that people were having about it. He put his arm on my shoulder. He said, "Son, you've done the right thing." And I said, "I feel like I'm my own person for the first time in my life." But I had to take a symbolic, like actual step, not a mental one. It was an actual step. And that really helped me. But I think my whole thing is be your own person and think for yourself, draw your own conclusions, but don't wander into conversations, particularly in my group, and say that that's not your belief, but then have no comeback as to, well, what is your belief? What is your Adventism?
Yeah. Well, this is my step. This is my.
Your
It took a
line in
lot
the
to
sand.
come on here.
I know. And weren't there some funny adjustments? One I had to pull out because I turned out I was away, and then the internet, and then something else, and here we are. Well, I'm honoured to be a part of that line in the sand that you're drawing here. Let's bring up another. This is from Keith again, talking a little bit more about cognitive dissonance here. And then I was just going to listen today, but I'm prattling on again. But anyway, that's all right. That's what I do.
No, I'm happy.
It's a conversation more than an interview.
Good.
Yeah, I just can't help myself. I even have written up here, Peter, shut up, to remind me.
No, I'm grateful. Conversations are much better for me.
So Keith Paulus has written, cognitive dissonance is a psychological theory that refers to the mental discomfort or tension that occurs when a person holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values at the same time. This inconsistency can lead to feelings of discomfort or anxiety, prompting people to make changes to reduce the dissonance and restore balance within their belief system. Yeah, that's true. And you know what? I was chatting to a pastor at lunch one day. There was a group of us having lunch together. I was surprised he was there because the group were more kind of had left the church. We were all just having kind of a discussion about it, and he was there. And he said to me, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with a bit of cognitive dissonance. It's healthy for you." And I thought, no, it's healthy to have differing views that you're challenging and thinking about, but it's not healthy to kind of go up and preach from the 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 rostrum or whatever it's called and say one thing that you're trying to fit in a round hole, a square peg in a round hole, while knowing you don't truly believe it, and then living this kind of lie within yourself. That's what causes the anxiety. But he kind of was almost smug in showing me a book he'd just read, and it was obviously a real atheist kind of book, and kind of smug that he was somehow making it all work. And I thought, wow, I don't want to be that. And part of my own personal journey is to try and become the person that's in here as I say it. And I'm not totally there yet, to be honest. Like, there's things I think and feel like, yeah, I'm not ready to really express that. But I'm on a journey to try and not go to my grave having pretended my whole life, I don't want to go to my grave and just realize I was acting just to please people, or say what I thought people wanted to hear. And, there's got to be a healthy time to go, I'm my own person.
There's one thing that I would really love to study about a little bit more in depth is, when Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven. I'd love to know what he meant by that. And I'm wondering if perhaps what you're looking at there maybe that is the kingdom of heaven, maybe that space where you're your own person.
Yeah. Because the
maybe
kingdom of
that's
God
part
is
of
within. The kingdom of God is within. It's here now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that I'm really enjoying exploring now that I don't have that filter. But I'm not saying that people have to do that.
No.
Do whatever is working for you. But if you're on my radar, expect me to challenge it. I challenge everybody. I don't think you could watch my interviews and think there's no one who escapes my challenge.
Yeah, that's good.
Deanna writes, I think it's a form of programming. Someone else has written, this is Keith again. Desford, a good man whom I respected, but he wasn't much help to Adventist gay people. That's interesting. I think to defend Des there, Des had a laser sharp focus on the theology of, is it Daniel 8:14, the investigative judgment, correcting the errors. He didn't even really know who the Beatles were. Like, his was a laser sharp focus to bring into a really clear perspective, I think, what he thought Adventism could be and perhaps should be. And when you look at it through that lens, the things that I would have liked him to kind of maybe say or talk about, I can see, that just wasn't on his radar, in a sense of, because when I got to know him a little bit in the years before he passed, he definitely came across to me as warm and considerate and loving of all people. But I think he was from a different era and died too soon to really address a lot of the stuff that's going down now.
It is a completely different world.
Yeah.
The whole I think there is a reason that Gen X sort of got forgotten.
Yeah,
You know, there's a really deep divide between the boomers and
yeah,
and
and the
in a way
millennials.
we're a sort of a bridge between we sort of
Yeah,
understand them and we sort of understand them.
yeah, yeah. And there's
But
another generation between Gen X and the boomers, which I'm in, called the baby busters. Because
okay.
I wasn't old enough to be at Woodstock. I was like 7.
No.
And so I don't get the boomers. I honestly do not get them. I listen to them. I see the camaraderie they have. They were all there in their 20s and 30s when the Des Ford stuff was going down. They're all street preaching, and I just wanted to be soon. But the busters and the Gen Xers, they're kind of a forgotten generation in many ways, and they're steamrolled at the bookend by the boomers and by the generation the boomers created, the millennials.
Dad was in America when all of that stuff was going on, and he told me a little bit about what was going on. They literally got everyone into the church to vote people out of the church.
Yeah,
This was all it was insane. And, they got the kids to vote,
They needed the numbers.
and they needed the numbers. And apparently they kicked out an awful lot of people. And so Dad started an ecumenical fellowship that was on Sabbath over there. So he preached for years doing that.
Wow. So he was more on the what we're calling the gospel Adventist kind of side of things, the Des Ford side.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I'm seeing things. I think a lot of the time when you're an Adventist, it's how you look, not what you do.
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
So true, yeah.
It's and I think, Dad, he knew how to look. And he knew how to shape himself for the group that he was in. But yeah, it was good that he at least made this church for these people that got kicked out. And then one of them was talking to me and she said, well, now, in America, they don't wear wedding rings. And, well, at least now, so I decided, well, if that's the case, if they kick me out, I'll get myself a wedding ring.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But anyway, that church fizzled out and died. Apparently it was a major church. There were lots of people there, but since they voted everyone out, the church fizzled out. And I literally sang at the final shutdown of that church. But they're back bigger than ever with a new building and a new school and everything now. But, that time really did affect the church. Yeah, but I don't know. Nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
Nobody,
Yeah. They don't want to rock the boat. Adventists don't want to rock the boat. And they've gotten masterly at criticizing you without seemingly criticizing you. Like, hey, Pete, love what you're doing. Hey, we don't always agree, but and so it goes. We'll bring up Peter's follow-up on the Sabbath. I reckon the seventh-day Sabbath is probably the one more distinctive teaching that is actually on 100% solid and clear ground biblically. How we use it in eschatology, though, isn't necessarily right. I agree, Peter. You can certainly find a solid argument for keeping the seventh day on this sphere. That keeping it's a bit hard because what do you do in Norway? But anyway, yes, you can find a solid ground there. But I think the important thing is not even finding the 100% that it's there and in the commandments, etc., etc. The eschatology is important. Like, what do you do with it? The Sabbath. Adventism uses the Sabbath as a final test that you will have to keep, opposing the Sunday law. And once you've been chosen to be on the team, when probation is all closed, you will have to stand, continuing to keep the Sabbath as a sign that the devil was wrong and you vindicate God, and there's no intercessor. So, when you extrapolate, okay, here's this beautiful thing that can be confirmed from the Bible, but what do you do with it next? That's what's important. And
Yeah.
I think Adventists distort the truth of what the Bible teaching is on the Sabbath.
Yeah, man. Just you going through all of that, all my anxieties coming up.
And look, I'm reinforcing it a lot in the last 7 interviews and reaction videos I've done, because I want to bring home to people, this is your McDonald's mission statement. You might go, oh, that's not my mission statement. I don't believe in the Macca's mission statement. Well, your church does, and it's doing a lot to bring it to the world. So what you do with that's up to you. But I'd love people like that to come on the show, and everyone's turned me down. I'm not going to try and trick you. I just want to tease you, those that are out there. Come on the show, and I want to just find out, well, what is your Adventism? And were there unicorns dancing in the back of the church as you enjoyed your Sabbath haystacks? I want to know where this real Adventism is, and how did it manifest itself to you? And does it matter that Ted Wilson's Adventism is starkly different to your Adventism?
Could they be worried that they would get red pilled?
Yeah, maybe
Look,
they're
honestly,
scared that I will,
because you have to think.
Yeah.
And the problem is, thinking will eventually lead you to truth. Because as I said, I didn't think about it. I just went off in my merry little, Adventist world, knowing right from day one that I could never keep the Sabbath. I could never be a decent Adventist. I married a non-Adventist because I didn't think that I was good enough to marry an Adventist, because I was never good enough as an Adventist. Never. And thinking it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
That's interesting, because my Adventism on the soil of Avondale College, a lot of it was birthed there. There must have been something happening when I was 7, 8, or 9. The church must have been doing some kind of push for Ellen White and the end of time, the time of trouble. And we did regularly have sermons any day. Like we can't, look at the times around us. There cannot be, and the Lord will return within 2 years for sure. So I did get all of that. But I had such a strong connection with Jesus. I never felt my salvation wasn't assured. So I was very lucky with that. So I can look at Ted Wilson, and I can look at all these kind of cursed Adventist texts and go, well, that wasn't my Adventism. So what I am doing is trying to unpack what my Adventism was, and I'm just encouraging them to do the same. But I think you might be right. I think they're too worried that by having their beliefs challenged, that as you say, I might be the gateway to the red pilling of Adventists. So they're worried.
Who knows?
And a lot of them are employed. There's a high level of Adventists who are employed. I read a stat somewhere that in America, in the USA, 1 in 2 Adventists is employed by the Adventist Church in some way, monetarily.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, and that might be wrong. But
as I say, I was a fringe dweller for quite a while. So I was sort of in, sort of out, sort of in, sort of out.
Yeah. Someone wrote yesterday, what right do I have to judge whether someone else is a real Adventist or not, or something like that? And a part of me was shocked, because I thought, am I judging?
No.
And am I coming from a position of higher moral ground? I don't have a higher moral ground if I am, I do apologize, but I just like challenging people. I can't help it.
Well, the problem is we're taught not to think.
Yeah.
You know, this is what Adventism is. This is what it is, and this is how it is.
Yeah.
And fall into line or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and I can see where people head straight out the door and head for agnostic or even atheism,
Yeah.
because you know the Sabbath kind of sends you there, because you can't go to a Sunday keeping church.
There's nowhere you can belong.
There's
And you're
nowhere.
guilt-ridden. You're guilt-ridden. You're damned if you do and you're
Yeah.
damned if you don't.
Yeah, and I don't know where I was going with that comment, but anyway.
Well, I was lucky, really lucky, at Avondale to be surrounded by the Des Fords, the Arthur Patricks, the Norm Youngs, the Dr. Magnusons, the Drewers, the Salems, my dad. Even Dr. Lindsay, who's quite fundamentalist. They're all around. I'm playing with all their kids. And when I was 7, Dr. Magnuson really challenged me on why I was coming to Sabbath school. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm 7. Don't ask me these big questions. But I went away thinking, yeah, why? Why am I doing this at 7? And then my dad, you know, he's fantastic. He's 91 and still going strong. He would say to me, you know, the more you know, the more you don't know. And I'm just so glad for that, because my whole life I've thought it's just normal to ask why and prod. I've been doing it my whole life. People say, oh, you've left the Adventist church and that's what you're doing now. I was doing that since I was 7. Like I would be challenging people and getting told off for doing it my whole life. So now I've got a podcast and a YouTube channel where I'm doing it as well. And I just think it's a healthy thing to do, you know.
Oh, look, and I can see why you're doing it, because, you know, it's very cathartic in a way
and
to
it's quite,
figure it out.
yeah, and it's quite funny and fun to do it. Like once you get over the initial kind of, oh my goodness, they were teaching me the scapegoat, that Jesus was one of the high priests, that Jesus was a created being and the archangel Michael, and then morphed into this, and I have to stand without an intercessor. Once you realize that that is so not only not the gospel, but it's anti-gospel,
Yeah.
you kind of laugh with relief that you're no longer under that banner of confusion.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So I quite often, I don't know if you've noticed, I quite often laugh on the program, but not at people. It's like a relief laughter.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not completely there yet, but honestly, yeah, it feels there's so much relief. It really is. It's almost like I can live my life. But then
yeah.
I find myself wanting to try and go back there sometimes,
Yeah.
which is you know, I start getting uptight, or, you know, oh, this is what I should do. You know, that whole should thing comes into my head. And,
not that you're asking for advice. This is unsolicited advice. But I found that you don't have to not connect with Adventists. Like people say, oh, you've left. Why are you still poking your head back in? It's not your business. Why not? Well, of course I can.
Yeah.
You know, why? And when you realize that, I can go along to church. I can go, hey, how you doing? Catch up with people.
Oh,
I just don't see
if I
we
could
have
do
to
that
create.
yet.
Oh, believe me, I sit there going, oh my goodness, this is absolute rubbish. That preacher is just, all that happens. And so I don't go very often. I think in 8 years, I think I've been to church twice. But what I'm saying is that you don't have to distinguish an end. You know, I've left the Adventist church. You don't have to. It's not a death. It's just a decision not to follow that ideology. Yeah. And you can still be friends with people and hang out. And
I am, and I do.
Yeah.
I've told them that I'm out of the church, but I don't tell them what my beliefs are, and I don't tell them in any way what I think they should be doing, or anything like that, because it's just not for me. The only thing that I do tell them is that no, it's not you.
Yeah. It's your own personal thing.
It's the theology, and blame Ted Wilson. You don't have to.
Or thank Ted Wilson. Thank Ted Wilson for defining it so clearly. Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I don't have to believe it.
Exactly.
When I listened to the progressives, that's what was confusing me. The progressives are to blame because I was this false hope and, I think I believe in that. I do feel good about what you're saying. But he's gone, "This is what we believe." You can then go, "Oh, that's not for me." He's done the church a great service, I reckon.
Yeah. Oh, look, when I had 3 little kids on my own, because I'd split up with my husband by that point, I'm going to have a coughing fit in a minute. I was panicked, because, I'm going to have to, with 3 little kids, try
Massive.
and get to the hills. And, woe to those with babies.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. Oh, the
Oh,
time of
man.
trouble.
Yeah, time
Yeah.
of trouble
Up
stuff.
in
I
the
was
mountains, little baby, cans of baked
com
beans.
completely panicked,
Yeah.
completely panicked.
Yeah.
And I'm just over that.
Yeah.
I don't need that anymore, and me, there's no way I'm gonna be able to not sin
Yeah.
when Christ's intercession goes away.
You're gone.
It ain't happening.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So, I don't know where I don't even know if I'll stay a Christian, to
Well,
be
then,
honest.
yeah,
Sometimes I have that thought.
yeah.
I really
And
don't know.
if your path, your own brain, you being your own person takes you there, I
Mm,
don't see that as a slippery slope. I see you as becoming a stronger and stronger person that is gonna make the decisions
mm,
that are right for you. That's not a slippery slope down into a negative realm. That's a positive thing where you're taking responsibility for your life and your decisions. And, if that's what happened to you, for example, and you wanted to still comment and be part of SDAQ&A, you'd be 100% welcome. Like, I don't think we have a right to judge people's journey.
no, no. No, you have to be where you have to be. And there's the internet's been wonderful for a lot of people, like the whole Scientology thing, all
Mm,
the other groups, the high demand religions and groups. The internet's been terrific for that. And I think that it is, I don't know if you could call it a path to enlightenment, but a path to I don't know, but not it's like you've got this cage around you,
mm,
or around your heart even,
mm.
and you can't think for yourself, you can't do anything for yourself, but you always want to get out of there.
Yeah,
And where do you go to get out of there?
yeah.
And the only thing that I can say is, if you're feeling that way, study Ellen White.
Mm,
Find what she actually says, find
mm,
what she actually believes,
mm.
find out, like with Scientology, learn who Xenu is,
Yeah,
figure
yeah,
it out. And I don't know, but I've never felt better.
yeah.
I'm a wreck. Oh, my house is the biggest tip you could ever see. I've got to try and renovate the thing. I've got a property and it's a wreck. Because, of course, I bought the 5 acres over COVID because, end times.
Wow. This is so
Um,
recent then.
I've done the whole 9 yards. I've been the whole, yeah.
Oh,
So, and now I've got to, live with my decisions, but 5 acres is I've got
when
to keep
you're
5 acres.
talking about, that sense of liberation, I'll just bring up Shady Vista. Well, I like that name. The
Yeah.
preacher encourages your capacity for illusion and tells us this is faith. There is no substitute to free thinking, and that's kind of what we're just talking about.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with free thinking, and eventually you're like a bubble in the deep, dark recesses of the ocean under rocks and seaweed or whatever that's down there, and all of a sudden your bubble's releasing, and you're going through the bends if you go too fast and too slow, but eventually you've taken a path where the bubble is going to reach the surface and be out there in the light.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of go, well, what do I do now? Or, boy, that wave's a bit big, or whatever you face is reality. But that experience of being liberated, it is something I could never explain before.
No.
And I'm not being high and mighty saying I claim it now, but I go to sleep every night happy, no matter the challenges I've faced during the day.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
because
exactly.
my little bubble has burst, and I'm now at the air that was in that bubble is now released into the atmosphere. And what happens next, I don't even mind, because I'm just so much enjoying the sunlight. And people might say, "Well, that's just a delusion. You've been deceived." Okay. I don't. It's the opposite of feeling deluded. I have spent a life of feeling deluded, and I
Yes.
can tell the difference.
Yes.
And there's
Yeah.
delusions within delusions, and there's all sorts of different religious bubbles you can get caught up in, and worldviews you can get caught up in. But honestly,
Yeah.
when you have the opportunity to compare the two, they are chalk and cheese. This kind of liberation, this freedom, is so different to anything I've experienced before. It's the
Oh, it
opposite
is.
of happy clappy Pollyanna happiness. It's just not that.
Oh, it's not that at all. And that was the thing. I was trying to go to the Pentecostal church to find exactly what you're talking about, find
Yeah.
that freedom, find that, but I
Yeah.
didn't find it
No.
there.
No.
Didn't find it there. I found it when I got rid of that Adventist worldview is not the great controversy thing
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of my life. That was what was keeping me chained up.
Yeah.
And and it's amazing how it was there, but it wasn't there.
I
And
know.
once you put it there, you can decide against it.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
way it's sort of given to you in this piecemeal sort of bits and pieces, yeah, putting it together makes it happen.
Yeah. If you've got someone leading above you, you're not free. You don't. None of
No,
us needs some kind of leader. We can
no,
aspire to follow advice and teachings of inspirational people. We might have a boss at work that we need to comply with to be their employee.
yeah,
But if you're living your life with someone bossing you around in any way, you're not free.
no,
You
no,
have to be your own person. That
yeah.
is the ultimate. That doesn't mean you're selfish. In fact, you can be less selfish, because that freedom doesn't compel you to control people.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, as I said, my viewpoint on people has just completely changed. I can see where people are. I feel for Adventists. I
Yeah,
don't hate them. I don't have any issues with them at all. I'm better now toward them or anyone in this world than
yeah.
I ever have been, because I can get rid of that whole, and I don't even know what you would call it, but it's
Well, you're not
just
blaming, like you said. You're not
no,
even blaming your parents anymore.
no,
Blame
no.
has gone.
Blame has gone,
Yeah,
and it's a much nicer place to be. It's a
yeah,
much nicer place
yeah.
to be. Yeah.
Someone has written, and just by the way, those on Facebook, please put your name, because I can only see Facebook user, as you can see there. I was kicked out and banned by the SDA Church because I believed in equal love and marriage. That finished Sabbath keeping for me, as I was forbidden to attend church.
Wow.
Diane Rowenfeld. Hi, Diane. Good to have you on the show. What are the Pauline texts? I referred to them earlier. I'm meaning a lot of the books outside of the four Gospels and Acts, I think, also were written by Paul. And so that's what I was referring to. For me, I'm not saying don't, like, please, because I'm saying I do it. I'm not saying it's the best way or you should do it. But yeah, I just am enjoying that simple gospel teachings of Jesus, and I'm happy to springboard. But at the moment, I'll read some of the Paul stuff, even though it's liberating, it's still a bit confusing to me. I'm just going to take my time before I dive back into that.
I'm using it for deconstruction, the Paul stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Hebrews and Galatians, and there's beautiful stuff there. So I'm not saying it's not beautiful.
But I don't know with the Reconstruction. I'm with you. I want to start with the 4 Gospels, only because someone spoke to me years ago and said something about Paul, and it sort of stuck. And I thought, okay, yeah, maybe you're right there. And I heard you say back in one of the interviews, now I've forgotten. but you
Paul
said something that sparked in me as well. That
Well, he was rejected by by James and one of the other apostles, and it's in the Bible. They were, no, you're not an apostle. And people say, oh, but later they recanted. Only Paul said that they changed their minds. We don't have any record of them saying that.
Yeah. This
and he doesn't talk. He doesn't talk about. Like, it's very rare that he talks about Jesus, the living person, and he's not quoting Jesus. He's all about the Jesus he met on the road to Damascus. And so his is all about the heavenly Jesus. So, but I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying I'm just not going to get my head around that until I fully understand Jesus, the man.
Yeah.
So that's just my journey, and people have criticized me for that as well, and for being open about that. I'm not taking away your beautiful experience with Hebrews and Galatians and Paul, incredible theologian, and had a way of explaining really interesting, complex thoughts into quite a practical theology. And his letters particularly to the 7 churches, he apparently wrote to 14 different churches or something, I'm not sure, but there are 7 that were definitely Pauline letters, not attributed to anyone else. So I'm looking forward to going back into those, and they're very practical and very theologically amazing. But for me, I'm just sticking with really simple stuff for now, and and it's working for me right now.
Oh, look, I don't. The problem is, once you get rid of something, something likes to sort of replace it, and I don't want to replace it yet.
Yeah.
Because I could replace it with exactly the same thing. And now I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but there are Adventists that have converted to Catholicism.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't think that I would want to just replace one high demand religion for another high demand religion. So at the minute, John 3:16.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. That's
your
all
anchor.
It's my anchor. It's what I've got, and I'm not studying. But that brings up anxiety, because you should be studying the lesson. No.
And reading between the lines, and what did he really mean?
Do I have to sit and read my Bible every morning? No.
Yeah. I just love that it's not rocket science. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to grasp the good news of the gospel.
Yeah.
And you don't. I've not signed up to anything else, and I'm not going to. But I hang out with lots of different kinds of people, like very different people.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that I'm being drawn into their vortex. I just enjoy their humanity and conversation. And if they get a bit woo-woo, I kind of step back a bit and go, okay, back to.
I remember what you
Peter
said
Machine.
now. I remember what you said.
Oh, yeah.
You said that if you can't find the gospel in the Gospels, there's something wrong.
Yeah. That's right. That's true. If you can't find the gospel in the Gospels, and the reason I said that was because someone who was doing a presentation for me at Voice Life Fellowship, where I asked them, please, just the 4 Gospels. A guy said, "Well, you really," I use my mocky voice, I'm not mocking him. I can't help it. Anyway, I'm not being mocky, but he was telling me that, hey, you're kind of saying to a violinist that he can't explore the full realms of the classical era and must only play a certain style. And I said, well, that if you're looking at it that way, then I started to think, well, how can I explain that? And I thought, well, if you can't explain the gospel from the 4 Gospels,
Yeah.
what are you expecting? You can't just take that instrument and suddenly make this masterpiece if you can't have the very simple core message presented from the 4 Gospels. Anyway, that was a long way of explaining what you just said. I'll just bring up that Peter Mashenko one. I believe the thing that sticks most of us to the SDA Church that disagree with much of it is the incontrovertibility of the seventh day being the biblical Sabbath. I've learned though, that there are other Seventh-day churches like Seventh-day Baptists and don't have the extra stuff that is on much shaky ground. That's so true. That's right. The Sabbath is not unique to Adventism. The only unique doctrine to Adventism is the investigative judgment. And that's the one that leads you to the no intercessor. And there's just no way around it. If you're going to not believe that, you're not believing the key mission statement of Adventism.
Was it Miles who had an interview with a Seventh-day Baptist? And apparently he was
That was one of ours.
Yeah, it was one of yours?
Yeah.
Apparently he was baptizing Adventists.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to sign up to the 28 fundamentals.
That's right. Yeah. He was quite surprised how many Adventists do find their way to him in his church in Sydney. And Peter,
well, at least they've got somewhere to go. That's huge. When you're trying to deconstruct, the Sabbath is the real roadblock. That's the real roadblock. And if you can get rid of that and get someone, I think it was the same guy you were speaking to said something about, or it might have been you, starting a
we were going to
church on a Saturday.
we were chatting. There was 3 of us, and I don't think Peter minds me saying him as well, exploring the idea of starting a chapter of the Seventh-day Baptists up here between Newcastle and Cooranbong. And that still may happen, but not in a sense that I will be like a foundational member of a new church or branch of the Seventh-day Baptist. Not at all. I just like to facilitate something and say, hey guys, here's an option for you to go if you want. And it's nearby. You don't have to drive to Sydney. Doesn't mean I'll sign up. And I said to the guy, I said, I'd love to help facilitate that, but I wouldn't become a member. And I think it was like, what?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I can understand that because there's no way. Like, I'm happy going to this little Baptist church, and they're a lovely bunch of people, but I'm not going to be joining anything.
No, you don't have to.
For a while, It's lovely going there and actually hearing the gospel in a sermon. That's unusual. Every week, it's the gospel.
It's just the gospel.
Every week.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. There's no subtext. There's no diversion. There's no sales funnel.
No.
Just say, we're opening up the book of Mark today. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And it's lovely.
Refreshing. So refreshing.
It is.
Yeah. Canadian Anglican has written again. And by the way, I'm glad you're still watching Canadian Anglican. I hope you learn a lot of stuff about Adventists here, and don't take our word for it. Just explore what's out there. Does the Adventist Church read the Bible at Sunday service? Well, they don't go to church on Sunday. They believe that it's the mark of the beast. And even those who say, well, that's not my Adventism, I don't believe that it's the mark of the beast. Fine, that's good. That's your journey. Collectively, the big picture, the thrust of Adventism is the Sunday laws are coming. And so
Yep.
Adventists worship on Saturday, and they do read the Bible. They claim to be the people of the book. But when you dig a little deeper, it is very much filtered through the writings of Ellen G. White, who was their prophet.
Yes.
Even though she claimed to not be a prophet, she's a messenger. Oh, dear.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is
look, I
they've
think
got an
I'll
answer
find
for
out.
everything, haven't they?
Yeah, I think I'll find out as I go through. I will always find something that is. I'll find out. Oh, that wasn't in the Bible. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And what I'm realizing recently is that here's the Bible, and then Ellen White sets it in this big cosmic conflict scene and
Yes.
adds the backstory and the
Yeah.
post story uh,
Yeah.
in a way that it's just not in the Bible. It's just not there.
We've
It's
all read Milton's.
fascinating. Yeah,
We've all read
exactly.
Milton's Paradise Lost without reading Milton's Paradise Lost.
That's so true. And many other great writers.
Yes.
Peter says, no, it's not a salvational issue, as we're not saved by our right or wrong actions, whatever they may be. If you want to try and live according to the Bible, though, the Sabbath is definitely there. If you want to try and live according to the Bible, though, the Sabbath is definitely there. Man, Peter, that's a big question. That's a big statement. It's a bold statement. If you want to try and live according to the Bible, though, the Sabbath is definitely there.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, that's that. Oh,
And let's
it's,
say it is. It's still not a
oh,
salvational issue. So how you then choose to live it, like, what I agree. Live it. It's there. But also is a whole bunch of stuff. Stoning people if they don't go to church. If they don't keep the Sabbath, you stone them. But we're not going to follow that.
but yeah, I don't know.
It's a very interesting statement.
On a Sabbath morning, as I said, sometimes I'll get up. I can watch the service from down here, and I can watch the service of Mum in Perth because they're at different times. And my face is always scrunched up, because I'm trying to figure out. There's all these. It's this, but it's this,
Yeah.
and they don't match. They
Yeah.
can't coexist.
Yeah.
But there's the cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. It's like if you want to be a guitarist and follow and live according to the Bible of guitarism, you encounter along the way what they call the pentatonic scale. It is at the core of all lead guitar improvisational playing. And so, yes, if you want to live according to Guitar Bible and aspire to be a great improvisational guitarist, yes, you do have to dig into that. But it doesn't make me saved for the guitar heaven. It just means that, and some people dig into it a little bit and find a lot of joy, and some people like me dig into it. I could write a PhD on the pentatonic scale and the 7 modes. I just love it. And so I've gone into the theory, but it never felt like theory. So yeah, I'm living according to the Guitar Bible, but the beauty of the Sabbath and playing the pentatonic scale is you can touch on it. I could literally show you right now the pentatonic scale on the guitar, and I guarantee within half an hour you'll be playing it and going, "Well, that I didn't realize that. That's so much fun." And that's it. And you're living according to the Sabbath of the Bible. Or I could spend the next 5 years giving you an hour a day on the depths of it. And that's kind of according to the Bible too. But it doesn't affect your salvation. It doesn't affect your joy. It's just simply an outpouring of love for the instrument. And I don't know why people don't grasp on my incredible guitar analogy. I've said it so many times. Everyone goes, huh? And I think they go, huh? Because they don't love something. They've never loved something truly. And I'm so lucky to have loved the guitar and playing the guitar. I've loved it. And I think I had that kind of relationship with Jesus when I was younger. I just loved Jesus. And so I immersed myself in Jesus, and I've immersed myself in guitar playing. And I've realized that the average person actually doesn't understand what having a passion is. The average person just watches people having a passion, goes, I want a bit of that. If I copy what they're doing, then I might have what they've got. And they don't actually understand what it is to be in love with something. God, another person, music. They're painting their life by numbers. And I think that's 95% of people.
I believe that because I think I'm probably one of the 95. I don't know. I suppose, and that's the problem, I think, is when you're trying to do things for others, you can't find your own passion. You're
100%.
always trying to do things for everybody else. So your passion go on the wayside. I know that back in the day, people thought I had a good voice. Dad said one thing to me, because it was, someone was actually talking to me about getting maybe some sort of a record contract. None of this happened. It was all pie in the sky in the end, but that's not the issue. But I was told, unfortunately, by my dad, oh, well, professional singers have to really sing in tune, don't they?
Oh, goodness. Oh. But see, that's like Ted Wilson or someone saying, and you have to keep the Sabbath perfectly to go to heaven. It's not true.
But what is perfectly? Tell me what perfectly is. This is the
ridiculous.
Sorry, now I'm getting worked up.
No, good on you. It's absolutely ridiculous, and shame on people that use that terminology because they don't get it. They consistently put out the joyful spark of people who have got a passion for something. I am so glad I did not pick up on the truth of my skills. I just happily would be out there. I'd be singing in Sabbath school. My teacher was laughing one day, and I thought, oh, she's laughing because she's so thrilled that I'm enthusiastic and I've got a great voice, But I now think she was probably laughing because I was like the only one singing way too loud and probably out of tune.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Bye. Sorry, I'm at work.
Oh, good.
and someone walked in.
I hope you can claim for this.
No. Boss knows I'm here.
I love it.
So,
yes, I was lucky that my ignorance and naivety and inability to see my lack of skill led me to just follow joyously along. And I'm very lucky not to have had parents to kind of squash that. But I also think I definitely would not have made a living as a musician if I'd really woken up to my actual talents. I think I had some raw talent in certain key things, particularly guitar playing, but I so was not who I thought I was and wanted to be. But I'm so glad that I kind of didn't get squashed because that led to my ultimate joy.
I found karaoke and I never looked back.
And again, this is what, if you're thinking a record deal and a certain kind of success is music heaven, then, and this is not you, but people who think that are painting by numbers, and they misunderstand the joy of Sabbath. They misunderstand the joy of Jesus in the gospel. And I feel really sorry for them. So if you're not getting my guitar analogies, I feel sorry for you. It's not that I'm not explaining them well. Sorry. Someone else has written here, Andrew uses good words to explain things, such as manufactured guilt. Yeah, I loved that. And I loved what you said about what did you say about instead of a cult, you called them
Oh, that's not
high,
mine. That's
yeah, but
high
you're bringing
demand
them into
religion.
high demand religion. I've never
There's
heard that.
a YouTuber, Cults to Consciousness.
Mm,
She's the one who coined that phrase, but it works with Adventists. They don't realise, when you say cult, they go, ah! When you say high demand religion, it
yeah,
almost makes them think.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's just a different way of thinking about it.
yeah. Yeah, so Keith goes on to explain there that manufactured guilt refers to the manipulation or creation of feelings of guilt in individuals, often by external sources, even such as advertisements, societal norms, or individuals seeking to control or influence others. Yeah, so this manufactured guilt is not even really a deep, heartfelt guilt. This can be done through various means such as guilt-inducing language, unrealistic expectations, or emotional manipulation to make someone feel guilty for something that may not actually be their fault or responsibility. And Canadian Anglican also watching, and by the way, Canadian Anglican, you mentioned earlier that the Anglicans have similar issues. Yeah, that's true, but there's not this kind of sorry, I've just forgotten again. What did you say? Not using the word cult, but high demand.
High demand religion.
Yeah, high demand religion. Anglicans aren't a high demand religion. It's quite a benign religion. Yes, you have high Anglicanism and your lower levels, but you can choose to go in there and whatnot. And if one week you've belonged to a Baptist church or something, they're not even bat an eyelid, so it's not a high demand religion. Where does the Adventist Church stand on LGBTQ issues? Wow. Well, there's a big divide as far as members go. There's a lot of members that are very accepting of it all, but as an actual official stance, the church would be against it. As an official
Ted's got a
stance.
video on it.
Yeah.
I watched Ted's video on it.
Yes, that's a very interesting one. And Barry has written, Canadian Anglican Adventists do read the Bible, but they read Ellen White too. Ellen White copied her writings from mainly Anglicans. That's
I can believe that.
And a lot of Adventists will say, hey, Ellen White's that's not my Adventism. I've hardly read any of her stuff. And I'm interviewing someone on Sunday night just to be able to make it happen, a gospel Adventist that said to me, that's not my Adventism. And we're going to be chatting about that because she said she's only read 2 books of Ellen White. But regardless of that, Ellen White permeates Adventism. And if you're an Adventist, you cannot help but being marinated in her perspective.
I read the first page of The Great Controversy.
Right.
Until recently. I've read lots more now, but that Great Controversy worldview is still in me.
Yeah.
It's there. I gained it through osmosis.
Yeah.
So I think that everybody
Very
who's
powerful
in the Adventist Church gained it through osmosis. I mean, I was in Cradle Roll.
Yeah.
I started in Cradle Roll. I'm a Pathfinder. It's all there.
And it's interesting when I read it, the other day, the deep dive into chapter 28, 29, 39, and 40, reading it over and over again. Mainly on audiobook, to be honest. Like I couldn't sit there and read. But what did strike me is how it doesn't feel like an old-fashioned book. I'm not sure who she was copying from or who her editors were at the time. I don't think Fanny Bolton or Marion Davis was on the scene then. I'd love a viewer to tell me. But whoever they were had the ability to actually, the language is, you can read it and think it was written in the last 5 years. It doesn't feel like old literature.
James, perhaps.
Yeah, he was definitely a gifted publisher. I must research that. Someone has
Mm.
said, sounds like you're coming out of the closet of Adventism.
Pretty much.
Fred Simmons, just randomly reading some stuff here.
Yep.
The Revelation seminars shown in almost every SDA church every year after year is basically the same. It hasn't changed for decades. That's true. It's just more colourful and the brochures are more fancy and their slideshows are more professional. You're so right. That has not changed.
Yeah, I was really interested yesterday when you were talking about, that it's abuse, child abuse.
That's
The
really hit
stuff
me.
that's through there. Like there was a sermon recently where they started off with Hiroshima and, where there were outlines of people and, it's
And kids are seeing this.
horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And then they go into the full 9 yards of the end time,
I know.
and
Yeah.
oh man, no.
And the claim from people that this is not my Adventism. My daughter, 11, who goes to an Adventist school, which I love. I'm not criticizing the school. I love it. But some isolated teacher put the fear of God into her one day, talking about the time of trouble. I wanted to protect her from that kind of stuff. I feel terrible about it, but shocked. So people that say, "Oh, that's not my Adventism," well, she's in the hub of progressive, gospel-oriented Adventists, and it still pokes its ugly head out. And it is child abuse. Don't tell she was 10 at the time. So this is last year or the year before. So,
No.
and it wasn't her class teacher, by the way. It was someone at assembly. Don't abuse my daughter spiritually. I'm very angry about that.
I don't
This
blame
should
you.
not happen. There should be, the parents should be told, hey, we're having an R-rated preacher coming in today. He's going to be talking about the time of trouble and going up, it's she couldn't get her head around that if she didn't keep the Sabbath and she'd have to run to the hills and she might go to jail. And President Ted, I love that he's being honest, but I don't like what he's revealing, is saying you may even be executed for standing up for your faith. Like, why do we just go, oh, we don't, that's not Adventism. You're president to the world, having thousands of views. You need to stand up for your faith. And look, you might even be executed if you don't. Young kids hear that.
Yeah, well, the last time I went to church was because I was invited, but it was to my grandson's baptism. So I don't know whether I liked that. So the only thing I could do, was tell my son, at least read the 28 fundamentals to know what he is signing up for.
Yeah. And maybe even get a copy of the birth certificate, the baptismal certificate that he is supposed to sign. Have a read of that. That's worse than the 28 fundamentals.
Yeah. Oh, I had a read of because I've been going through all of it. Like I've gone through not the 28 fundamentals, but right back in the 1800s and 1700s, wherever it was. Anyway, all the old stuff. I've been going through the old stuff.
Yeah.
Before they've changed the language.
Before they've watered it down.
Soften the blow.
Yeah. Boy, you read the investigative judgment 28 fundamental, which I can't remember which number it is, but it's there, but you have to really read between the lines now to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I tell you what, like I was watching a post by a kind of a former Adventist pastor, who I would say doesn't call himself an Adventist anymore and is having lots of big questions. And he posted a picture of his daughter being baptized and how wonderful it was and how beautiful. But then afterwards he had real guilt about it. So I just want a little message. If you're a pastor out there in the area around here and you approach my daughter in any way to try and give her baptismal studies, you better let me know first, because that is not going to happen. So do not circle my daughter with this kind of spiritual abuse. Your brain can't even function to decide if you want to be an Adventist or not till your synapses join even in your brain, you know. So do not. It's a little warning here. Sorry, Andrea.
No, it's
Talking to
fine.
you, not you, not you. You, pastor, local, anywhere in the Nelson Bay to Woy Woy area, do not approach my daughters.
Good
There will be
plan.
trouble.
Good plan.
I promise you.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Dave Wilmoth writes, so good. Thanks, Peter and Andrea. Your journey so familiar. The freedom is worth it. Enjoy the peace. And Rick Dingman is responding to something you said earlier. I would love to study the kingdom of heaven with anyone who wants to dig into that. That's great. And Laurie has responded to him. Are you in the States? So, mate, Rick, you might start a little Facebook group. If you do, I'll send people there. James, Andres, how you going, my friend? It's amazing how we who came out of SDAism because of the gospel recognize and share immediately the joy and sincerity of people like Andrea. It's so joyful and liberating for all of us to share. It is a common thread. When I went to the former Adventist Fellowship, thank you, James, for funding that man I just put up there. He funded airfares, accommodation, all food. I will eternally be grateful for that. But the vibe amongst the former Adventists there was just joy, like a release from prison kind of joy.
Yes, I wanted to drop everything and just go. But no, not this time.
And
Okay.
yes, that's right. Didn't I say, hey, get it, we'll all go. And Nellie Smith writes, absolutely, go, Andrea. She wasn't meaning go to the thing. She's just saying go for it. I think there's a lot of support for you and your thought process here.
Oh, thank you.
Just randomly bringing up stuff. Recently, the African SDA Church supported African leaders making laws criminalizing sexuality that's stepping over the line. US SDAs are silent on this event. Ooh, that's interesting. Silent on it. I read somewhere recently that when they had that whole, was it in Rwanda, the Adventists fighting each other, was a bit of genocide going on. Did you hear about that years ago? They ended up killing each other. The two big Adventist communities in Rwanda, like slaughtering each other, and one side won, but they wouldn't do it on the Sabbath. They waited till the sun went down. Now I might be wrong, but I want to do a show on it, and there's someone sending me some information about that.
Oh, wow.
This is a good point. Rick raises the question, we need to define what keep means in the Hebrew. It's so true. Like, what Peter Bashenko said earlier, the Sabbath is an important thing to, if we're going to follow the Bible. But there's so many things there. What does keep the Sabbath mean? And is there a way of keeping it that gets you salvation or not?
Then the whole example of Christ and how to live like Christ. I mean, we've got 4 little tiny books. I mean, we'd need 10 encyclopedias, and that wouldn't even be enough of a description of who Christ is. I'd much prefer to just let Christ do the dirty work, and I'll just follow him and done.
Do your best. And a lot of the people that pushed back on me the other day and said, well, that's not my Adventism, said, hey, we're just doing our best. Yeah, good. That's all I think people should do. But it's not what the church is saying. The church officially, weighed down with so many sources and material and books and doctrines and teachings, and Ellen White herself does not say that it's just, hey, give it your best shot. That's not what they're saying.
It doesn't. You do it. And all I'm asking is define what I need to do.
Yeah. And isn't it the opposite of the gospel that Christ was crucified and had not sinned because there needed to be a lamb sacrificed? It needed to be a pure individual, pure being sacrificed. That's it. He did not lead a sinless life so that by an example that you can too. And in Ted's video I played, he literally says, don't let people tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the problem is if the gospel Adventists actually find the gospel, they'll realise they don't need the church.
Yeah, like what's the point? Just go
And
to
of
just go to the
course,
Bible. Why do you need it?
exactly.
And what they
And
say is, oh, but we got the Sabbath and we've got the health message. Well, so many people have got the health message. So many people have got the Sabbath. It's what you do with the health message. It helps you get into heaven. It's what you do with the Sabbath. It helps you get into heaven. It's you don't need it. You can go mistake. It's not even providential. It happened. It was wrong. You don't need it.
yeah.
Fred Simmons writes, Adventists are motivated by fear of death. Jesus said, if they kill you, to rejoice and be exceedingly glad. Yeah. Okay, boy, we're getting so many comments. I'm loving our conversation. I guess we should wrap it up, as you might have a time frame there.
No, but I might need a break soon.
Yeah. We'll wrap it up in a minute. Can you see questions coming through you want to address? There's so many coming through now, which is lovely.
Can see as they're coming in.
I'm just scrolling down. We're not going to be able to make all of them, of course, but people can. Here's a good one. Diane Reinfeldt is right. Thanks for sharing, Peter and Andrea. This has been a roller coaster viewing for me today. Triggered, then encouraged. Love your work. Hey, Diane, that's amazing. Diane, do you mind sharing in what way you were triggered and what way you were
Yeah, that'd be
encouraged?
interesting.
I'd love you to just unpack that a little bit and we'll read it if you're still watching there.
That'd be really interesting.
Yeah, because roller coaster viewing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were triggered on my last Ted Wilson. Ted Wilson is a real Adventist. That woo! That was I couldn't believe how much engagement, as in the pushback on me that was. I rarely have that bad.
Wow.
Well, yeah, from progressives.
Yeah.
From the good guys, the ones who offer false hope and a non-clear definition of what it is they actually believe. And
I just decided to get off the seesaw.
Yeah.
Just get off the seesaw and out the door.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I because I was going to the Adventist church, and this is only small compared to you, but because I was going to the Baptist church and I'm in a small town, an Adventist found out that I'm going to the Baptist church. And so then a friend of mine from the Adventist church said that such and such came up to me last week wondering what's going on with you and da-da-da-da-da. So anyway, I rang her straight back and said, you can get it from the horse's mouth. So we had a good long conversation. She wanted to know, so I told her where I'm at, which is pretty much what we've been talking about. See, now I've forgotten where I was going with that.
You ran into this lady. No, she'd been saying stuff and you called her and said, hey, you can hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, but I also said that, look, I'll tell everyone that you guys are amazing people, but I am going to tell whomever wants to know what I think about the Adventist church and all the beliefs and all the bits and pieces. So I suppose they've been warned. It's not about them.
No.
But yeah, it's, again, I said it. It's Ted's Adventism, and I've just decided, because I remember back in the day, oh no, you can't do that because it's got a beat. You can't, and I'm just, I'm over all of that. I'm over all of that. And as I said the other day, I had to do it again. I actually got asked to help with the worship service. And again, it's you can use that, but take all the drums out, and that bass is a bit too much as well. And
Didn't you say something about your backing tracks? I read you say.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, because I use karaoke version,
right.
so you can change everything in there.
The drums out. And yet, if you watch 3ABN and these other conservative channels and their intros to them, there's drums in there.
Yeah. And again, that's the whole thing. There's always two rules. There's always two. There's, yes, it's saved by grace, but yes, it's yes, it's fine to have drums, but there's always a but.
I know.
And it's that. It's like my whole body's been pulling itself apart with all this stuff for years. And so it's lovely to just, as I say, clear out the Adventism from the Christianity and then move forward from there.
Yeah. Boy, it's been great chatting with you today, and I think we should do it again. I think we should say 3 months' time. Let's see how your journey's going. How clear do you want to make it that you're not on that seesaw anymore? Like, would you make a statement of where you're at clearly? Like, I'm not trying to push you into something.
I haven't done it yet, but I'm definitely writing a resignation letter.
Yeah.
That's definitely happening. I've just been a bit lax, but at the same time, I think it is because, I've been going through a lot of mourning, because this has been my whole life, my whole world. It's it's a part of me that will never go away.
A loss of identity. Go away. Yeah,
exactly. So it's just going to be a slow. It's going to be a slow journey.
Yeah, I like that, and I think that's really important to highlight. Don't ever let someone push you to their time frame on anything.
No.
Because like I was surprised at the loss of identity. I was not expecting that when I left, because I did not only did I do Facebook on the Monday, I literally wrote, and I didn't go into detail. I said, hey, I'm leaving the church, to my local church. Please take my name off the roll at your next board meeting, and love you guys. Just let me know when it's done, though. And that's all I did. But when I got the letter back confirming over the next year or two, I couldn't believe the loss of identity and the kind of mental strength you have to cope with that. I'm lucky that I'm emotionally very strong, and so I was able to just but it was still, whoa, this is an interesting feeling I wasn't expecting. So anyone that's thinking of leaving the church, don't think I'm encouraging you to do it at any haste. Don't even think I'm encouraging you to do it at all. But if you are doing it, and if you're like Andrea, kind of, like you said, you're kind of starting to write down your leaving, I resign thing. If other people are doing that, just take it slowly. There's no rush.
Yeah.
Because and prepare to, like people like Andrea, I don't think you'd mind if people within the group on comments contacted you and said, hey, look, can I chat about that, or can I unpack that? So I think there's a lot of people that watch the program that would be happy to help anyone that's leaving. Okay, we'll finish off with a couple of last quick fire comments and questions. I've learned much from your recent programs, Peter. Thank you. Thanks, Laurie White. Yeah, there has been a shift since my jump into kind of reaction videos, where normally I've just done interviews. I think the last 6 or so have been reaction videos, and I've been surprised at how cathartic it is to kind of just not script it and just go, these are my thoughts. And since the last setting the record straight, I've just noticed that it's helped me a lot to just be a bit clearer about what it is I'm trying to do and what's going on and what my thoughts are.
I really appreciate it too, Peter, because it's, Look, I'm a bit of a loner, and I've moved myself away from the city, and
Yeah.
this is a big thing to do. But
Yeah.
because of what you do, because of what all the other YouTubers do, I don't feel alone. I've never
Great.
written in a comment section before in my life,
Yeah.
but I really
Here you are on
appreciate
the show.
everyone in. I really appreciate everyone in the comment section as well.
Yeah.
I don't feel alone. So thank you.
Boy, that's powerful. That's so good to hear. There's a camaraderie building, and it's building between Adventists, former Adventists, even conservative Adventists. There's a nice thing happening. There's some fun and games and biffo, but there's some really. I'm glad that you feel the support. And look, I know you got to run, but so I'll just be quick.
That's all good.
Rick wants to sit down and chat. Rick, you would be welcome on my show. I'd love to hear your perspective. Send me a message. Someone has written, George Gregory Thompson, so thankful to have been removed from the SA Church. He was booted out, obviously. Tell us
Love
more.
you, Gregory. He's my
Yeah,
son.
that's your son.
Yeah.
Hey, Gregory, come on the show. Tell us this story. I think it would be fascinating.
He pulled out ages ago when I said, what I'm doing. He said, "Yeah, about time," and started throwing a party.
I love it. Well, he's got your back.
Yeah, he does.
Alpha
He's in
Matter.
America.
Oh, wow. Come on the show, Gregory. When someone leaves, they always say, "I'll be praying for you." It's funny. I keep thinking we're going to have the last one. And they're just coming. We're going to have to just stop. We're just going to have to stop. So, look, thank you, everyone, for watching. Really appreciate it. I've had such a ball, and it has been a conversation instead of an interview. And I think
I
people
love
that are
it.
watching appreciate that as well. Just sharing ideas. And it's literally like we've just been sitting here face to face having a little supper and chat. And I really value you coming on the program. And thank you so
Thanks for
much.
having me.
And if anyone wants to support what I'm doing, you can scan the QR code there. It really helps. I really appreciate it. And it just gives me more opportunity to produce this kind of content. And particularly as I'm doing these reaction videos, even though I don't script, I tend to find myself, like when I did the one on probation or the Ted Wilson one, I can't remember, there'd be hours of just listening to stuff and researching. There's no, it's not hard work. I love it. I just suddenly find myself down a rabbit hole. But it does take extra time. So yeah, I'm trying to encourage the odd donation just to help me keep on doing it. And I think that is about it. So we will bid thee farewell. Just finding these buttons again over here. Thank you so much, Andrea. Until we meet again.
Terrific. Can't wait.